Hi guys, let's go watching. Just before that, subscribe and enjoy yourself. The protagonist, reading her favorite romantic comedy, The Time Trap, is deeply shocked by what she sees as the novel's illogical choice of a heroine. She chose one man, Lenin's, over the protagonist, Ertine, who impressed her. She also does not understand why the author added the tag, character correction, if the novel does not talk about the hero's remorse. In a world of romance dominated by gentle men who devote themselves entirely to girls, The Time Trap is a romantic comedy featuring hot male characters. That's what the main character says. She voices her point of view, which claims that the male characters make mistakes that lead to misunderstandings, tangled love triangles, and other unexpected plot twists, followed by a regret-filled climax that ends with the protagonist miscarrying. The scene where a girl who has lost her child demands a divorce in bed and her husband falls to his knees in front of her as if he will never see her again impressed our protagonist so much that she hasn't missed a single sequel. However, she still cannot understand the protagonist's choice of a husband, even resents her, because she was sure of her opposite decision until the end. The girl realizes that this situation could not have affected her alone, so she went to the comments section under the book and, seeing the reviews of like-minded people, wrote a dozen comments. It made her tired. After a while, the protagonist sees that there is an update under the last chapter, a comment from the author, in which she notes that she has decided to create an alternative ending to the novel, in which the heroine chooses Ertain over Lenin's. Although it will take some time. This news reassured her that she had not spent the money in vain and that it seemed to have paid off. It also made us realize how powerful fans are. Immediately after that, there was another news from the author of the novel, in which she assures us that she wants to make a gift to one of those readers who are impressed by Ertain. This even more pleasant news removed the residue of the unpleasant ending from our main character, and she went to bed in a great mood. The next morning she woke up with a strange feeling. A stranger was lying next to her, whom she initially mistook for a robber or even a bandit. But the guy was sleeping peacefully. This suggested that he was not a robber or a bandit. He was incredibly handsome, perfect facial features. The guy looks like he stepped off the pages of a fashion magazine. None of this was as important as what was happening at all. A different room, a different hair color, a different protagonist. Before she could recover, the same guy who was sleeping next to her woke up. He was surprised by the girl's early rise, especially after last night when they were together. Since they were both awake, the handsome stranger, who was still unsuspecting, suggested that they repeat the adventures of the previous night, believing that his companion would not mind either. Still not understanding anything, the girl heard a voice that recalled the words of the author of the novel about a special gift for Ertain's admirer. It seems that this is not a dream, and she really became the main character of the novel, Cornea. The story of Cornea, or simply Kona, was not an easy one. The girl was an orphan. Usually, such stories of pretty girls rarely end well, but Koni was lucky. She was born with a weak magical gift. She was able to live a good life. Through her part-time job, Kona went to a masquerade where she came on behalf of an aristocratic lady with whom she had become close. She was quiet and tried to run away, but she had to overcome herself and drink alcohol to get rid of the persistent attention of the man who was bothering her. Alcohol mixed with an aphrodisiac could be very dangerous. The villain sneers and tries to kidnap Cornea. At this point, an unknown man drinks the rest of the alcohol, thus driving the scoundrel away. This man is our protagonist's bookish favorite, Ertain, who ranks first in the time trap. Ertain lays Kona, who was breathing heavily, on a bed in an empty room. Leaving the girl alone, he is about to leave, but the effect of the aphrodisiac begins to work on him. They both felt an overwhelming desire. From time to time, a spark seemed to slip between them. After all, they were in for a very hot night. Now, our protagonist is in the middle of the action. In the original story, Kona was supposed to wake up first and run away. The new Kona, who is a real-life reader with experience, had a feeling that she had to follow the plot of the original. But in her opinion, everything had already been spoiled. She was sure that she couldn't go too far. Otherwise, there would be no turning back and she would ruin everything if she changed her mind. The boy continued his caresses. He whispered pleasant, exciting words, kissed her, and promised to improve her mood. Even though the new Kona tried to say that she was not the one he had actually spent the night with, she was still pleased with the intimacy. Trying to resist the temptation and the memories from her reading that testified to Ertin's good skills, the protagonist tried to recall anything, even the anthem of a country, to get rid of the annoying memories. However, she thought that changing the plot now would not change it as a whole. Even when Kona ran away in the original, Ertin found her. She is brought back to the estate. That is, to follow the plot and come to the beginning. The difference of a few days may be noticeable only to those who are familiar with the original. While the new Kona was thinking, Ertain began counting to 10, emphasizing that if she did not make a choice during this time, he would take her silence as mute consent. And she made this choice, which satisfied both of them. As a result, Ertain fulfilled his promise and the girl's mood really lifted, even despite the circumstances. It was a great time spent together. The guy got up from the bed and went to wash his face, saying that he and Kona would have to talk after he returned. Now that her mind was clear, she was convinced that she had to run. At first, she thought that the original plot did not concern her, but now she realized that this was not the case. Even now, it is not too late. According to the girl, the Duke will not be able to torture Kona because it will turn into an abyss filled with evil, and the current her cannot survive in this hell-like world without someone on her side. So she slowly got used to Kona's body and left. The sun was almost at its zenith, and although the memories of the real Kona had disappeared almost without a trace, the girl could remember where she lived and returned to some extent. She made it home without incident. She fell onto a hard bed and thought about what she should do and what was up to her in this situation. It seems that the reason why the author moved our protagonist into Kona's body is that she has to change the ending of the time trap, to make it a proper novel in which a person truly repents. The girl perceives this as a noble revelation from above. She was sure that no matter what the author's intentions were regarding the plot, the new Kona would do everything in her own way to be with Ertain in the end, because the writer had to predict the reader's behavior. From that moment on, a plan emerged that the girl had to follow. In fact, Kona was not liked by Ertain's family because he had a childhood friend, Rebecca, with whom he discussed an engagement. Later, it turns out that his family is full of real scum, and the friend he trusted turned out to be no better. All the thoughts and analysis of the original story led the girl to believe that she was pregnant. Although the real Kona didn't get pregnant after the ball, she ran away before Ertain woke up and didn't stay like our heroine. There was little chance of pregnancy as Ertain is infertile. Even after one more time, the chances of conceiving a child were too small. The heroine was thinking about future actions that could significantly undermine Ertain's trust in Rebecca when she suddenly heard a knock at the door. Surprised, she went over to open them. An unknown man bursts in, leaving the protagonist with a lot of questions about what's going on. The man attacked the girl with questions about the month's rent, which she was supposed to pay yesterday. And then the girl remembered him. It was Jeffrey, one of the Sultan's collectors, who runs this street and is always pushing Kona. One of the reasons Kona ran away the morning after the ball was a bribe. Jeffrey grabbed the girl by the collar and asked her if she was ready to be his. Suddenly, the man stumbled when he saw something on the girl's neck. It turned out to be a small bruise from a kiss. This made Jeffrey very angry, and he raised his hand to hit Kona. Another unidentified hand grabbed the wrist of the enraged man, thus stopping him. It turned out to be Ertain, who found Cornea faster than the cannon. But, he said, it was still longer than he expected. Ertain quickly got to know Jeffrey. As it turned out, Ertain came to take Cornea with him. He was upset that she ran away from him, making him think that he was so disgusting to her. However, it didn't matter. He still intended to take her away. Ertain was worried that Kona might be pregnant by him because they hadn't protected themselves. He said that his blood was priceless, so from that moment on, Cornea was his. Even though Kona had been at Velsida's estate before, these actions are in line with the canon. Kona was worried about her plan and whether she should be prepared for the events that were to come, because her plan had been written before Ertain's arrival. The maid came into the room and said that Ertain was waiting for Cornea for dinner. Kona agreed, and this agreement was the beginning of her plan to change the ending of the time trap. The maid took Kona to the living room. She noticed how quiet the estate was. However, upon entering the room, she was struck by its beauty and elegance. Eran followed her into the room, striking with his beauty and the clothes he chose that emphasized his muscles so well. The guy said that they could eat separately if it bothered Kona, but she assured him that it was fine. The heroine said the phrase according to the canon, asking when exactly she would be able to return home, to which the guy replied that it all depends on her and her possible position. Eran went to his room, telling Kona that until her private room was ready, she would live with him. This event was not in the original. Even though Kona decided to deviate from the canon, she hasn't started doing anything according to plan. It was also not according to the canon that Eran told the girl his name, which he was supposed to give her a day later. Kona began to reassure herself that this shouldn't interfere with the plot, no matter where she slept. Kona knew that Eran would announce in front of Welsita's people that he would marry her. After that, the petty people behind Rebecca will start their abuse. She also knows that these villains have a plan to ruin everything. They ended up in a room where Kona asked if they should be together. She meant not just sleeping, but doing, in her words, the wrong things. The guy took her words as if their time together was something she didn't want. He wouldn't mind repeating all those things with her in moments of intimacy, but he's not a scumbag to do it without consent. Eran told the girl that she had a maid assigned to her to help her take a bath and just be there when she needed something. Kona began to refuse, saying that she was not going to run away anyway, so she did not need supervision. The guy offered to take a bath together. She refused, not wanting to give in to temptation. Eran told the maids that Kona wanted to take a bath. Finally, he told the girl that if she changed her mind, he wouldn't mind joining her. This phrase sounds so romantic only when he says it. Kona's goal was to solve one problem that could currently prevent her from having a good honeymoon with her beloved. After the procedures, Kona went to rest on Eran's big bed, where he so often fell asleep alone. Although you wouldn't say he sleeps much. He has enough to do. Eran Velsita is an honorary commander of the Imperial Knights, a swordsman who goes above and beyond his diligence in his work. This is a person who does not have 24 hours a day. Our heroine was just crazy about this guy. From his ability to treat girls properly, his mannerisms, and his beautiful muscular arms. To make tomorrow come sooner, Kona decided to go to bed. In the morning, she noticed that Eran hadn't even gone to bed, but he assured her that he had a lot of work to do. She was upset because she thought he would sleep next to her. Today, according to the canon, Eran must tell his family that he will marry her. She must be ready for this. Later, the maids came to the room. Their task was to get Kona ready, to dress her up, and to choose an outfit so that the marks on her neck would not be visible. When Eran saw the girl after all these manipulations, he was struck by her beauty, but he couldn't help but say how sorry he was that his imprint was not visible on her. This made the girl blush. Later, Eran also changed his clothes. He looked amazing, and now Kona was impressed. She regretted that she could not openly express her admiration. They were already waiting for them. The boy asked Kona not to listen to what others would say, because he would have the last word anyway. Before the event, Eran announced the news that Kona would become his wife. The hall was abuzz with noise. Everyone was outraged, reminding him that the union was to be with Rebecca of the Milax family, and that this girl was an ordinary commoner, and not even of noble blood. These conversations and reproaches made Eran angry, and he stood up for Cornea, shutting up the one who talked the most. According to the canon, Cornea was the first girl the boy brought. This event would have caused a stir of emotions in any case. Relvond Velsita, Eran's father, took up the floor and said that such statements about his son could not offend him. However, he agreed that others could be understood. Everyone thought that the young man would marry Rebecca Milax, and why he chose another woman was a mystery. Eran answered this question directly. They just spent the night together, and now he assumes that the girl might be pregnant by him, which is why they decided to get married. Even when reading this scene for the first time, the protagonist already then took Eran for a psycho. Having experienced this event live, the word psycho is too mild a definition. The girl had already caught dismissive glances, and Eran hadn't even proposed yet. Ertain's father asked his son not to rush into marriage until the pregnancy was confirmed, as there was a chance that he might regret it. The guy assured me that if the girl was carrying his child, she would become part of their family, and time would tell. One of the guards interrupted the family council, saying that he had received a call from the imperial palace. In the novel, Eran hesitated for a moment and then said that he would return soon. After all, having introduced Cornea to the family, he believed that the most important part of the job was done. It was very sensitive of him. He must have felt Kona's despair as she sat alone in the meeting room. No one could have imagined that the situation would turn out this way. Kona would have been happy to leave with Eran, taking his hand, but this did not happen. She continued to sit in her seat, surrounded by relatives of her future groom. One of the attendees suggested that the topic of Kona be brought up for discussion, claiming that they had been told too little about the family head's new girlfriend. The idea was supported almost unanimously. At this point, according to the story, the orphan Kona could not object to the insults disguised as questions. She was indirectly called a commoner, a deceiver, stupid, and asked tactless questions. However, these people are not facing the canonical Cornea, who cannot respond to insults. Now this girl did not remain silent, but assured me that it was with Mr. Eran that she spent the night for the first time. And the result of a possible pregnancy can be shown by a magic test in a month. Kona assured me that she would agree to take the test now, and if she was really pregnant by another man, the test should show it. If so, she is ready to kneel down and take the punishment. If nothing is confirmed, the lady who said this should apologize for her words. The lady was furious at this insolence, not understanding why she should apologize. Kona claimed that she had insulted not only her, but also Eran, calling him unreasonable. These words frightened the lady so much that she began to make excuses for what she had meant. Kona said that if the lady had something to say, she should say it in front of Mr. Eran, because she had insulted not her, an ordinary commoner, but the head of the family, so she should answer to him. After putting one of her offenders in his place, she asked the others if anyone else wanted to speak, because it seemed they had a lot of questions for Cornea. Everyone was silent. Mr. Relvand, who had been observing the situation, suggested that the discussion of this topic should be closed, and everyone agreed. Before she left, Cornea reminded her, confusing the lady again, that she would be waiting for the magic examination. Kona and the maids entered Eran's dressing room. She was sure that after all this, the aristocrat's attacks would be even harsher, but she was still proud of her debut. Cornea decided to treat herself to sweets and a few books with a hot plot. She will definitely read these books, but her main gift for herself is the book Theories of Building a Magic Circle. However, the question arose whether the girl should become a wizard. Putting the magic book aside for later, the girl took up a novel about knights and princesses. Kona was so caught up in the whirlwind of events in the book that she didn't notice Eran enter the room and wonder what she was reading. He had no idea that Kona was interested in such stories. He asked if she wanted to do what she was reading about herself. Of course she wanted to, but she stopped herself by assuring herself that they couldn't until this happened. Getting off the topic, Cornea asked if the boy had finished his dealings with the imperial palace, to which he answered with an ambiguous yes. This made the girl laugh, because she knew exactly why he was called. The next question was about family gatherings and how they went. This question should be asked of all those in the audience. It would be surprising if either party had a good impression of the conversation, because their worlds are quite different. Eran said that Coney should get to know the people she should cross paths with in the future. However, she refused, not wanting to see them all after what had happened. It was a canonical event. In the original, Eran said the same words, but then Kona replied that she did not want to see them, barely holding back her tears. This time, it was not necessary. Confused by Cornea's words, Eran contacted a man who had attended the meeting to better understand what had happened. The man said that Coney was most likely uncomfortable in a new place, with new people. After all, it was not often that a girl without a family, who grew up in the common people, had to meet aristocrats. He also assured Eran that he would take care of her comfort next time. Eran believed these false words and let the incident go. However, Kona is not happy that she cannot control the situation and does not like it at all. Cornea asked if there was any point in getting to know Velceda's family, because if she found out with the others that she wasn't pregnant in a month, she would have no reason to stay. Therefore, she assured us that there was no need to meet until then. Eran was silent. She also said that she would take a pregnancy test in a week. Eran asked what kind of nonsense she was talking about, since she had assured him that a month had to pass. Kona said she had to undergo a test to determine whether Eran was the child's father. The guy was seriously tense and seemed to get angry when he asked if the girl could really be pregnant by another man, because he was sure that he was her first. Cornea assured him that no matter what the truth is, there are people who will still be calm only when they get the truth. Eran was furious, his fingers clenched into a fist, and his cheekbones were turning yellow. He asked who had dared to tell her that. The girl thought it would be funny to name everyone, but if Mr. Eran had already begun to dig into the problem, her words could have unpleasant consequences. So she decided that, not this time. Kona said that she did not remember the names or faces of the people, but since they asked for a pregnancy test, Eran would be able to find out who they were in a few days. The guy assured her that there was no need to do a check. He also swore that she would never see the person who had offended her again. Kona couldn't wait for it to pass. It was Eran who caused Cornea pain with his rational thinking, and his behavior showed his true colors. Still, she enjoyed making the character change. In conclusion, Mr. Eran said that there are things he would like to discuss, but now he has to resolve the issue with the aristocrats. That's why they will be able to discuss what Kona's book was about tomorrow. Tomorrow, they will also be able to spend some time together outside the house, but for today, Kona can relax at her leisure while Eran takes care of business. Kona's ear was burning from Eran's whisper. She was surprised at how easily he could turn even innocent hints into erotic ones. Now that erotic books had satisfied Kona's needs, she decided to take up the theory of magic. Corinna has magical abilities. Even if their number is a bit higher than that of an ordinary person, she needs to know how to use the crumbs of her talent effectively. The problem was that Coney needed to use her skills wisely because she was not absorbing the information very well. Even though our protagonist found herself in Kona's body and gained memories, she did not manage to gain all the knowledge that the novel's heroine had. Mainly, she lacked memories related to magic. The last time Coney met Jeffrey, she managed to remember his name, though not immediately. Most likely, all of this meant that the memory was returning gradually, perhaps when the girl was in familiar situations. Kona believed that she would be able to remember how to use magic when she started to learn something about it and study it. The only question left was what to do with all this. The book was very complicated, especially when reading it for the first time. It might seem that it was written in a different, incomprehensible language. But Kona could not give up so easily. She read again and again, trying to understand at least something written in the book, but she failed. Eventually, she gave up and decided that the theory of magic was not for her. The girl wondered if she could awaken her memories by reading something she didn't know, but she failed. Kona was tired and came to the conclusion that in order to overcome the heights of magic, she had to start with something simpler. And I began to remember what other similar books were mentioned in the time trap, and then she fell asleep. Through her dream, Kona heard a voice trying to wake her up. After this unknown creature succeeded, he congratulated her as the chosen reader and said that it was time for the first gift. The girl was seriously scared. It turns out that this little creature is the voice that reminded the girl of the author's words when she first woke up in this world of the novel. He was worried about how the girl would adapt to this world, so he wrote notes. She, in turn, barely calmed down enough to avoid throwing a pillow at him. The next question that worried the girl was where they were, because everything around them was strange. It was a space inside her dream. The little creature told the heroine that he would help her enjoy life in the time trap. Several special gifts were prepared for the special guest. She was very interested in it. The little creature extended its index finger to the heroine, expecting her to do the same. They had to touch their fingers like in the movie E.T. 2 days ago, when she came to this world, she felt the same way as she does now. It feels as if ink is drawing letters in her head, one drop at a time, and gradually filling it with words. The creature said that it would help the girl to take over all of Cornea's memories. Of course, not all at once, because receiving a special gift consists of several stages. The first gift is Kona's knowledge of magic. Since this is only the first part, the girl was advised to accept these feelings to begin with. Next time, the heroine will have to pay the appropriate price for each gift. The girl was very inspired by the first gift. She was happy that she could finally use magic. So she was ready to receive the gift as soon as possible. The creature said that in order to awaken their memories, they had to start learning. This was obviously not what she expected. She was sure that the elf would just download all the knowledge into her head, and she wouldn't have to bother with studying. The gift had already been accepted, and it was impossible to refuse it. So they started studying. The first topic, and accordingly, the section was the theory of magic formulas, which was very difficult. According to the elf, the ratio of time between the real world and the dream world is 1:60, meaning that 1 hour in a dream is equal to a minute in real time. So if a girl sleeps for 8 hours, she will spend 20 days in a dream. She was stuck in this world for 20 days. Even in her sleep, the heroine could not rest. She just taught and taught, displaying each character without a break. The small, seemingly kind elf turned out to be a strict teacher who simply did not understand how easy formulas were so difficult to memorize. Wuhan reminded the girl that her time with him depended on how much she slept. That is, there is a chance to get stuck for a long time studying new magical terms and formulas. It took 30 sleepy days for me to learn all the basic theoretical material. It was very tiring for the girl. She no longer considered it a gift, because it was the result of her hard work. The elf told him that he had to wait 5 days for the next gift, and that's when he and the girl would be able to see each other again. But for now, they were saying goodbye. After that, Kona woke up. The girl woke up in a cold sweat, breathing heavily. It was a really hard dream. Ertine was sitting next to the bed, thinking that Coney was having a nightmare. Looking at her condition, he hugged the girl, began to calm her down, and said that if he had been there, she would not have had nightmares. Kona surprisingly felt so calm, as if she were being hugged and reassured by an old friend. And he is just a man she met a few days ago. Even though these were just mechanical words from a man who had upset Kona, she felt incredibly comfortable in his arms at that moment. Kona blamed the little elf for everything, calling him an evil elf who was smeared with wasabi. Cornea was convinced that Eratine was still that calculating turkey whose words and hugs only calmed him down when he was tired in his sleep. It turned out that while she was sleeping, Eratine had called a doctor to see her, who told her that her sleep lasted so long and was deep because of physical and emotional fatigue. Eratine asked how she was feeling and suggested calling the doctor again, but Kona assured him that everything was fine, especially in his arms. The boy assumed that being in the mansion was not easy for the girl, and that he should have been more careful, but he did not think about it. Kona was surprised by such frankness, especially from him. By the way, Ertine said that Brienne, the girl who had insulted Kona, was expelled from the Welsit family. We could only rejoice at this news. The news didn't end there. The guy also said that Kona has a special place in Welsit, and perhaps he will be able to show it tonight. In fact, the news was very confusing for the girl, because this was not in the canon, and such surprises are not in Ertine's character, so she felt a trick. Because of this, she decided to find out what this special place was. After convincing Ertine that she was still uneasy about yesterday's incident, it was good to hear something good and for the boy to give her a little hint. Under this pressure, Ertine gave in and said that in the evening there would be an official dinner, a so-called gathering, where the elders of the family would be present. Everyone, he said, regretted what happened yesterday and wanted to apologize. It was as if Kona knew there would be a catch to this surprise. And so it happened. She was convinced that no one regretted anything, and that at the dinner they simply intended to understand what weaknesses the girl had. Dinner with older family members was mentioned in the original without much detail, so the heroine was wondering if something would go wrong as in the canon. Kona pretended to be very happy about this news and lied about how she was already looking forward to this meeting with her family. This reaction amused Ertine, but he asked her not to tell anyone that she already knew about the dinner. Looking at the situation from the other side, the girl really didn't mind the dinner, because if things went wrong again, she could easily show what she was really capable of. Noticing that Cornea's mood had improved, Eran decided to touch upon the topic of the books she had read yesterday. He asked if she liked doing this outside the house. The guy offered to do it right now because he was quite excited, so he asked if the girl was ready for it. She wanted to forget about everything and just enjoy their time together. But she believed that it was very dangerous, because if something other than the modified original happened, there was a chance of facing deadly problems. So she decided to wait until a safer time. Eran left. He said that he understood, because not so long ago she wanted to run away from him, so he probably demands too much from her now. He advised her to get some rest before leaving. This situation pissed Kona off, because the guy was so hot and begging that she might not be able to resist. So now she decided to kill him well at tonight's dinner. To relax, Kona decided to read a book she had been fascinated by before. However, she remembered the book, Theories of Building a Magic Circle, and decided to check the results of the lessons with the magical green elf. To her surprise, Kona understood everything written in the book, which meant that her suffering and hard work had not gone unnoticed. The memories of her real Kona about magic returned to the heroine, memories in which Cornea, abandoned by her parents, grasped at a barely noticeable thread of her talent, practicing and experimenting incessantly. It turns out that the real Cornea had a very hard time. Our heroine was sure that this part was not written in the novel, and if it was, she did not pay attention to it. And now these are her memories. It was a strange feeling, but not a bad one at all. The heroine put her hand on her chest and covered her eyes for a moment, thus paying tribute to the real Cornea. So now the girl can use magic. She decided to concentrate the magic inside her body, and those crumbs of it that she didn't even know she had obeyed her will. Cornea's magical abilities are inherently small, and therefore she could not use magic in a way that would have a noticeable effect. Therefore, in order for the heroine to be able to fully cast magic, using something like magic circles and potions, she needs to be prepared. The magic that Kona can use is quite good. Now the heroine can lift heavy books with her fingers, the magic of body strengthening. It was just a weak magical ability that made her fingers stronger, but even though she could only use the gift in everyday life, its help already made her happy. It's time to prepare for a formal dinner, and the heroine decides to remember how it went in the original story. They met with Eran, who looked surprisingly gorgeous, although the girl herself was no match. The guy stretched out his hand to her, and Kona was ready to face those forces of evil. 5 familiar faces were waiting for them in the hall. One of them was Eran's father, Relvond, the other 4 of whom Kona had seen at the meeting, but did not know their names. There was a woman sitting there, the only one who did not raise her hand during yesterday's discussion. Sitting down at the table, Eran asked if another guest, Mr. Larnak, would come, and was told that he had some urgent business. Then the guy said that he just had to wait for Miss Elgina and everyone would be there. However, her presence was also in question. Mr. Relvon took the floor, he and Cornea introduced themselves to each other, and the man announced that they had all gathered to apologize for yesterday's incident. Other men sitting at the table also began to say how sorry they were that they could not intervene in the fight between the 2 young ladies who were having a heated conversation. One of the aristocrats said that the conversation was so fierce that offenses and misunderstandings would have arisen anyway, and suggested that they be resolved on the spot. This impressed Kona, so she asked what exactly they called a misunderstanding. In fact, Cornea memorized everyone's words. She remained silent when she suffered the attacks of these nobles, so she sincerely did not understand how they could consider it a misunderstanding. She could not believe that she looked stupid enough to believe this nonsense. Unfortunately, the right time has not yet come for such a triumph. Only 3 days have passed since the heroine was imprisoned in the castle, and she hasn't found anyone she can trust. Even Eran could have turned his back on her at any time. Cornea decided to proceed cautiously, agreeing that the incident at the meeting was indeed a misunderstanding. She assured me that she was grateful, on the contrary. These words caused great surprise among all those present. Kona asked if they had witnessed the insults she and Mr. Eran received at the meeting, and of course the men answered in the affirmative. The aristocrats noted Cornea's correctness and expressed their understanding of why the head of the family liked her. All this ostentation irritated Cornea, but she convinced herself that she was just taking one step back before taking 2 steps forward. Before they get rid of Corinna, these elders will pretend to be sorry, so the girl has to show her attitude towards them. A little later, appetizers were brought to the table. This became another reason for veiled mockery and outright bullying because of Kona's imperfect knowledge of table etiquette. Still, because these aristocrats now consider their instructions relevant, things are not as bad as in the original time trap. At that time, the real Cornea was very worried about the criticism that did not stop. She ended up throwing up in the bathroom because of the food she had barely touched. The inattentive Eran did not even realize that Cornea was being humiliated. All he said was that he would appoint an etiquette teacher for her. That was all the support he gave me. One of the elders, who seemed to be waiting for a turning point, promised to provide an etiquette teacher, and the real Coney had to deal with that pervert. It was hard to listen to all this even now, knowing the plot. And how difficult it must have been for the real Coney to listen to all this. History was repeating itself. One of the elders actually advised the girl to have an etiquette teacher, which caused her to drop her fork out of excitement, or on purpose. The embarrassed girl asked Eran what she should do, as she was still recovering from yesterday's shock. Cornea asked Eran to cut the food for her. This request surprised everyone present, and some were outraged. However, the guy easily fulfilled the girl's will. He asked if there was anything else he could do to help Coney, and she replied that she still didn't know how to use a fork and would be very happy if Mr. Eran could show her what to do. Eran moved his chair closer to the girl and began to demonstrate the correct position of the fork in his hand. To demonstrate how she understood this, Kona decided to feed the boy a little. He was surprised, but rather in a pleasant way. Kona did apologize to Eran because, in her opinion, she had not performed well enough at the meeting with the elders. The boy replied that she would learn with the others, and that even the elders should take it with a smile. The girl relied on these words and asked to just eat, because she could not enjoy her dinner enough because of the constant remarks. Eran stood up and announced that he would be Cornea's etiquette teacher. The girl was happy because another situation had been successfully resolved. She has overcome the biggest problem, but there is still something left. The only person who did not cause problems and remained silent even at dinner, according to Cornea's guess, was Anela Velsita, Eran's maternal aunt. If we recall the original story, she was supposed to talk to Kona right after dinner, but now everything was different, and the heroine was drowning in thoughts about how the situation with her aunt would probably turn out now, because she hadn't really thought about her. Kona's thoughts were interrupted by Eran, who greeted the new guest and called her aunt. It seems that the girl was wrong in her guesses. The woman who came in told me not to call her aunt because she was not even from the Velsita family. The woman was not happy that Eran wanted to marry this girl, and she had heard that she was an ordinary commoner. My aunt was convinced that marriage was unacceptable. The woman openly expressed her attitude to marriage right in front of Eran, which shocked the protagonist, because few people would do that, because everyone is afraid of this guy. Not his aunt. She seemed like an iron woman to the horse. Eran's aunt was strict. She believed that the boy wanted to ruin his family with such a statement. The woman assured that the marriage of the head of the dynasty is an important event, not only for him. She accused Eran of irresponsibility. At the time, Cornea was only surprised that there were people in the Duke's entourage who could speak so directly and to his face. She believed that they were all just puppets in the hands of the evil Rebecca. Eran replied to his aunt's remarks that his decision was more than conscious, and the latter asked with undisguised irritation if he really thought he had considered everything when he brought a girl he had met 3 days earlier to be the mistress of the house. Mr. Relvond entered the conversation, addressing his aunt, whose name was Elgina. He told her to watch her words, and they had resolved all these issues at a meeting. And if the head of the family is now cornered, it will negatively affect his reputation. Elgina said that the reputation of the head of the family is nothing more than a choice of a companion, and she is convinced that this couple is not that serious. Mr. Relvond reminded that the girl's pregnancy has not yet been confirmed. The woman said that was why they needed to know everything right now. But Eran's father said that by discussing everything here, they only complicate the situation, and in private they can discuss it as much as they want. Kona thought about it. She diligently played a commoner orphan, but the question arose whether the head of the family should worry about his reputation. She had no mercenary goals, and she could say that for sure. Ertine agreed with his father. This place was definitely not suitable for such conversations. Instead, Miss Elgina did not understand why they considered the discussion inappropriate. The woman suggested raising the topic at a family gathering next month. Ertine didn't mind if it meant he would finally see her there again. At this time, Cornea gradually began to understand everything. She made a mistake about Anaela Velsita, believing her to be Ertine's maternal aunt. Ertine could call only one person his aunt. His mother, also known as the former head of the dynasty, is Eldias Velsita. She was an only daughter, but in her youth, Eldias had a sister from a small family, and her name was Elgina. Since Ertin's mother's health began to deteriorate rapidly a few years ago, Elgina was appointed deputy head of the dynasty. But since Ertin became the temporary head of the family, she has lived in a secluded house without leaving. Ertain said that whether she agreed to it or not, Elgina had to accept that he had chosen this girl, and therefore his choice should be respected, especially since the woman had already retired from business. Elgina was impressed by the boldness of the boy's words, so before she left, she told him that she would wait for Ertin in the office, hoping that he would find strong arguments to convince her and Eldias. Cornea was still surprised by Elgina's arrival. The girl was convinced that this was because she had changed the canon, hoping that nothing terrible would happen, and now she doesn't even know what to do next. Ertain was the first to bow out, because Elgina was already waiting for him. Cornea said that she had to go too, so after thanking him, she and the boy headed for the exit. In the corridor, the couple started a conversation. Ertain said that he felt bad about Cornea's spoiled mood, because he had invited her. The girl responded with a smile, joking that she had at least learned how to use a fork. The boyfriend left, and the heroine was about to return to their room to continue working on the plan, but someone called out to her. It was the same woman, Anaela, whom Cornea confused with Ertain's aunt. She wanted to talk to the girl. The woman apologized for what happened at the dinner. She asked if the girl was upset by the head's words, but she replied that she realized she was out of place there. Anaela recalled the situation at the meeting and how things escalated when Velsita suddenly left, and she felt ashamed that she had not stood up for Cornea since she was an elder. If Cornea doesn't mind, Miss Anaela would like to help her from now on. These words alone made the girl very happy, so of course she was all for it. It seems that the heroine has found someone she can trust. The woman said that if her niece were alive, she and Cornea would be the same age. That's why Anena asked for permission to call the girl her niece, and she would call her aunt. The heroine agreed, but said it was better to call her Kona. Now, Elgina remained the main problem of the heroine. In the original, it was said that she was something like a puppet, but she is a representative of the former head of the duchy. Given that Ertin's mother's husband was Relvond, the choice of a representative was very revealing and bold. This can be equated to appointing an outsider as head of the family, forgetting about your spouse. Most likely there was a big fuss at the time, but Elgina has been replacing the head for several years now. Obviously, this is because she is competent enough to handle all the problems and has a strong morale. When Elgina handed over her responsibilities to Ertain, she lived on the fringes like a servant, but during this time she made influential connections that cannot be ignored. Kona could not allow a woman to stand in her way. Ertain returned late, and Kona didn't wait for him and fell asleep sitting down. He woke her up, asking why she was sleeping so uncomfortably. The girl said she just couldn't wait for him. He was pleasantly surprised to learn that Cornea was waiting for him, and that if he had known that, he would have returned as soon as possible. Kona asked Ertain about Elgina, pretending to know nothing about her. The guy replied that she was not really his aunt, but she was closer than it might seem. The heroine accidentally called Ertain Sir, to which he replied that 2 days ago he had ordered her to call him simply Ertain. The girl said his name several times at the boy's request, and then, based on her experience as a reader, Kona expected a kiss. Ruining the moment, Cornea asked how the conversation with her aunt went, to which Ertain said that they talked about her, and that she was interested in her. Because of this, the guy thought that she was waiting for him for a reason, and for details. Upset, Ertin assumed that Cornea had guessed what kind of conversation would take place between him and Elgina. But according to him, it was not the kind of conversation the girl was obviously expecting. As it turned out, this time Ertain's aunt decided not to oppose his relationship with the girl. The guy had to explain everything that was happening, because she most likely misunderstood everything at first. After listening to everything Ertain had to say, Elgina said that she would look after him for a while. Kona was convinced that Elgina would interfere with her plans, but it seems that everything worked out fine. However, she was a little confused when the woman said that she would not do anything this time. But she still breathed a sigh of relief. Ertain took her sigh as sadness over the outcome of their conversation with her aunt. He didn't like the fact that Cornea always seemed to be looking for an opportunity to escape from him, but this was what helped prove to his aunt that her fears were unfounded. Kona asked Ertain to tell her what they had talked about with Aunt Elgina, and he replied that he could not say, because it was a secret. Ertain, who usually creates problems out of nothing, thought the conversation went well. Kona thought she should thank him for it. The guy was surprised, but she explained that she was grateful because he had probably recommended her well, even if his aunt backed down. At the moment of gratitude, Kona called Ertin Mr. again, after which he corrected her, paying attention only to this address. The guy suggested that the horse needed time to absorb the information and that it was noticeable even at dinner. Ertain also assured Coney that she needed training because if others constantly make comments about her lack of etiquette, it would be useless. So the training will start tomorrow, which the girl was not happy about. Cornea said she was not sure where she would be in a month, so she didn't see any point in learning etiquette until then, as there was a chance she would leave. She was waiting for the guy to start resisting. Ertain assured me that this was logical, although the training would not last a day or even two. There are events he would like to attend with Kona, and the educational process can take up to 3 weeks. The guy was quite serious, and it seemed to scare Kona a bit, especially his future plans. Ertain said he had interviewed the thug who had broken into Kona's house the other day. He found out that the girl pays 2 gold to the head of the street in exchange for protection, but this month she hasn't paid, and if she returns, her debt will be 4 gold. In the world of Time Trap, 1 gold is approximately 200,000 won. Ertain offered to take care of her payments if she agreed to learn etiquette, since Kona was unable to earn money while living in the estate. Velsit's family is one of the richest families in the empire, so the girl was impressed that if she kept a man for a month, he would pay only 4 gold pieces to pay off the debt. In 3 weeks, Velsita's family is organizing an outdoor reception with many other families, and if Kona does well at the event while learning etiquette, Ertain will fulfill her every wish. The girl asked if she could ask Ertain to let her out of the castle, to which he replied that he would not do that. Then she asked if he could make her the head of the Velsita family, but he thought that was not what she really wanted either. Ertain said that a request is a wish that another person can fulfill, so he asked Corny to wish for something that he could fulfill. The guy assured her that she could ask for money enough for a mansion in the city center, or jewelry or rare treasures, even a temporary status as a lower-level aristocrat, and he would let her know if it was within his means. Given how large the Welsit family is, this does not seem impossible. It wasn't even a question of money. It would have been very nice for Kona to have such a lucky card from Ertain. Cornea was curious about how her work would be evaluated and what exactly would be considered a victory. Ertain explained, the Kona must use cutlery flawlessly and not leave the reception until it is over. If she stays there for up to 10 hours without making a single mistake, she can be considered to have fulfilled the task. If the girl doesn't make a mistake, it will be a failure. No one would think of offending her, and Brianna's experience taught them an important lesson. If something like this happens, Ertain will immediately recognize that she has done well. So the girl agreed. After agreeing, the guy advised Coney to go to bed and he had to finish his work. Kona assumed that Ertain didn't lie down because she was occupying his bed, and he asked what she would do even if she did. The girl said she could leave, but Ertain didn't mean it. He wondered if Cornea didn't want him to lie down next to her. This made her embarrassed. In general, Cornea didn't mind, but she would have liked to avoid touching. Eran was hoping for a slightly different answer, so he just went back to work. The next morning, when Cornea woke up, she didn't see Eran at her workplace, which was strange. When she turned around, she was shocked to see Eran sleeping next to her. She felt as drowsy as if she had never been. Since she had been here, it seemed to be the first time he was sleeping next to her. She wanted to touch him. Eran woke up too. He asked if he could touch her, because Kona said she wanted to avoid being touched. Kona replied that he didn't have to ask if he just wanted to touch her cheek. The guy was happy. Eran asked if the girl would mind a kiss, and she did not. He wouldn't want to touch her without permission, but he wanted Kona to know that the kiss would be no less long. The author was wrong. According to Cornea, Eran was unsurpassed not only in bed. It was strange that no one mentioned that he was a great kisser too. Eran left, leaving Cornea alone. It was an incredibly long kiss that will obviously remain in my memory. We had to think about what to do next. The most important change in the plot, aka the incident, is to take place a week before the test results are announced. The next day after the incident, Kona started bleeding and it turned out that she was not pregnant. She will ask Eran to let her go because she is not carrying his child under her heart. Eran replies that he cannot and asks Kona to stay with him. She will not understand why Duke Velsita clings to someone like her. Eran makes it clear that Cornea is the first girl he ever wanted to kiss, and he wants her to be the last. In the next episode, according to the heroine, the thieves who staged the incident will try to drive Cornea away. And if the heroine has a promised request for Eran, she can use it at that moment. From today, the heroine begins her etiquette training. Eran, who was already waiting for the girl to start, reminded her of this. The guy offered to eat together, and he would teach her the rules of behavior. The heroes were brought a dish to train on. This is the 6th time she has started the same dish over and over again, making mistakes. It seemed to her that this was an omen of her failure. Kona ate 11 servings of a small dish called amuse-bouche, and could not even look at the other dishes. This is the first day, and the sensations are more painful. Eran expressed hope that tomorrow they would be able to get to the main course. Kona asked if it was scary that Mr. Eran would finish his meal because he hadn't eaten anything else besides the demonstrative piece. She called him Mr. again, and it started to irritate him. Cornea couldn't understand why she still called Eran Mr., because in her head she just said his name. It seemed to be because of the habits that remained in my memories. Eran was sure that it would not be easy to re-educate the girl, so from now on, whenever she made a mistake, he would kiss her. It was very embarrassing for the girl. The guy, of course, expressed his understanding that Kona might not want to do this because she might think that his actions were not fair. So he said he would kiss her himself. Cornea asked if Eran would do it if she was against it, and he replied that it would depend on her behavior. In the meantime, he will have to remind her of the right decision. He should be called simply Eran. Kona said she wasn't really scared. For Eran, this meant that there was no way to avoid their agreements. Whatever happens, he will kiss her until she starts calling his name, hoping that she will want more. Already lying in bed, the girl daydreamed. For her, being able to kiss her lover is the best punishment. After that, she provoked him to kiss her 4 more times. Kona wished that tomorrow would come soon. The next day, it all started again. Remarks, instructions, comments. This time, Cornea has already eaten 8 plates of the same dish. Eran only gets more severe, criticizing even the speed of chewing. It was already the 4th day, and she felt like a cattle eating without restraint. Kona was learning much more slowly than Eran expected. He thought that by now she would have learned everything she needed to know. Kona believed that there was simply something wrong with the guy's methodology. As she lay in bed, Kona convinced herself that before she learned etiquette, she would stop distinguishing between flavors, and her insides would give up altogether. She was overwhelmed by a bad feeling that tomorrow she would have to eat a dozen plates of food, too. The girl fell asleep. In her dream, she saw that green elf again. He was happy to see her again, asking how her week in the world had been. Cornea grabbed him by the ears and began to complain, begging him to save her and accusing Eran of abusing her. And then the girl realized that he had come for a reason. She asked about this, and the elf replied that it was true and he was here to give her a gift, because it was the weekly day of exchange between dimensions. The elf said that this week's recommended memoir is Cornea's Personal Relationship. The heroine interrupted him and asked if Cornea had any memories of etiquette, to which he replied that Cornea was a simple girl who was abandoned at birth. The girl assured me that she needed nothing but knowledge of etiquette. She won't be able to squeeze in a dozen plates of the same food tomorrow. The elf assured him that he couldn't choose Kona's gifts, but she needed nothing but etiquette. She is suffering, and her precious time with her lover has turned into torture. But if we talk about memories, she realized that she had to follow certain instructions. From the very beginning, the elf didn't mean anything by it, but he can provide the girl with a special service. He assured me that such concessions are not often granted, and since there was nothing like this on the list of gifts, the price would be high. Kona was grateful, assuring him that she would always remember the kindness of this holy creature. The elf interrupted her, telling her to call him Mint Chocolate, and that from now on she should address him as such. It was something familiar. A week has passed in a dream since the start of school. Kona's acquaintance with dinner etiquette, which has ceased to be torture for her, is over. Mint Chocolate was proud of her. The next morning, during the training with Eran, she showed excellent results on the first try. He was impressed because yesterday she was far from perfect, but he praised her for her efforts. At first, Eran had the impression that Kona's perception was slow, but her skills are gradually improving. He got the impression that she could improve her skills rapidly, but she knew it was because of the gift she had received. The guy said that Kona's dining etiquette was fine, so they could graduate the day after tomorrow. The girl said that Eran had been working hard all these days, and he assured her that she had made a lot of effort herself. Kona thought she would feel more comfortable after learning the etiquette, but massages, taking measurements, fitting for clothes, learning to walk in heels, and so on, turned the time before the meeting into a nightmare. The day of the garden party came. Kona prepared and did everything in her power to make the event a success. A train met the girl in the lobby looking gorgeous. A cropped jacket that ended at the waist looked better than a long one. It seemed that any clothes suited this man. Eran said the same thing about Kona's dress. The only thing that upset Eran about Kona's character was that he was more outspoken than he expected. But he assured her that she had nothing to worry about. Eran asked Cornea not to worry and just think of the event as an opportunity to get to know his family members better. The girl was perfectly prepared. At the beginning, a man approached the couple to say hello. He asked Eran to introduce his companion. When he heard her name, he said that he had already heard of her and was pleased to meet her. Mr. Relvond overheard the conversation and congratulated Cornea and assured her that he was glad to see her as Eran's companion. The man asked why they had arrived earlier than scheduled, and Eran explained that he wanted to give Cornea time to meet their family. Relvond agreed that it was a good idea because they could become a family, so the more people she meets, the better. Then he asked Kona to let Eran go with him because he needed to talk to him about something. Eran felt uncomfortable leaving the girl, but she assured him that everything was fine and he did not have to worry. The guy assured her that he would get back to her immediately after the conversation. Right after Eran left, a stranger approached the girl. She introduced herself as Eileen Velsita and was very happy to meet us, because until then she had only heard of Cornea. The heroine thanked her new acquaintance for being the first to approach her, because she was a little scared. Then Eileen suggested that he join their company, as they were the same age, and it would be convenient for them to communicate. It was nice of her. Cornea realized how reckless this decision was almost immediately. Eileen decided to ask about the details of the girl's life. Eileen's friend Marinelle was the first to start the conversation, saying that she was impressed by the fact that Kona lived freely and asking if that was why she was a commoner or if it was just her personality. The next questions were about Eran and how she managed to get to know him so well, as he is known for his unapproachability. Marinelle began to almost openly ridicule Mr. Eran's relationship with a commoner. These questions confused and offended Cornea. Marinelle pretended to call Kona a commoner by accident and asked her not to be upset about it. Cornea decided to tell the story of how she met Eran and how they met during a masquerade ball. Eileen thought it was very romantic, but her friend didn't think so. The girl claimed that she had heard about the atmosphere of general enjoyment at such events, and that it causes promiscuity. This again put Kona in an awkward position, but the interlocutor continued. She said there was a lady whose marriage ended in divorce because of an incident at a ball. She came to the party with her fiancé, but spent the night with another man, who turned out to be the fiancé's younger brother. A friend of Eileen's assured her that it was a love potion that was mixed into the drink. Everyone was interested in what kind of drug it was that had such an effect on people. The girls decided that if Cornea had been to such an event, she should know. They did not tactfully ask whether he and Eran had been drinking a love potion that had been mixed with alcohol. Cornea assured her that it was the first time she had ever been to a masquerade ball, which led Eileen to assume that she probably didn't remember anything at all. Her friend asked if Kona had drunk alcohol before meeting Eran and how she felt. The blonde girl was trying to find out whether Mr. Eran himself was intoxicated on the day he met Kona and whether this meant that he had drunk her drink. Cornea confirmed that this was the case. The attacker thought it was strange that the head of the family drank Cornea's drink because it was not new, and perhaps it was the girl who offered him a drink. The blonde said that when she learned that such a commoner had attended the masquerade, she wondered if Cornea had gone to the masquerade ball for a specific purpose. Kona asked her what she meant. Eileen's friend was convinced that the main purpose of attending parties where only aristocrats gathered was to find the right person and start a relationship with them. Kona was silent. Marinelle continued her speech, assuring that she would not be surprised if the circumstances of the meeting between Eran and Kona were revealed, and that most of those present at today's event had probably already guessed everything. She accused Kona that her actions were not really an accident, because a commoner does not have many options for living. Marinelle is sure that the right decision is to raise her status at the expense of her husband, in which case Kona's goal is to successfully conceive a child. But she said that Wellsit's family had long been facing infertility, so she wasn't sure if Kona would succeed. Marinelle stopped April, who looked very scared. A man's voice came from behind him, saying that Cornea had won the bet. It was Eran who said that it was his fault that Kona was in such an unpleasant situation again. There was silence, and you could feel everyone around you tense up. Marinelle jumped up from her seat and began to greet Mr. Eran, introducing herself as a member of the Flanders family. However, the boy walked around the table and extended his hand to Cornea, ignoring Marinelle's gesture. The girl who had offended Cornea began to make excuses, claiming that there had been a mistake, and it was just a misunderstanding. Eran decided to clarify everything right now. Eran said that the night he and Kona spent together was initiated by him, and that the fact that she is now in their possession is also his responsibility. By insulting Cornea in this way, they are insulting his will and his decisions. Eran turned to Cornea. The girl called him Sir again, so he kissed her in front of everyone without breaking his rules. With regard to Marinelle, Eran decided that from now on she would not be allowed to visit the palace of Wellsita, and later, with the Flanders family, they would raise the issue of depriving her of her aristocratic status. Marinelle fell to her knees, her mouth was bleeding. It was a release of the power of the spirit, Eran's power bringing him closer to perfection. Eran said that he and Kona would return to the castle, and he would leave it to his father to see the guests off. The mission of winning the garden party was accomplished, so it was time for Kona to rethink everything that had happened and was still happening. Kona remembered the green elf. He was the one who warned her about Marinelle and asked her to cool her temper. The reason why Kona mentioned the masquerade ball was because she needed to give an excuse to attack. It was a trick to win over the offender. She could hardly contain her smile. Eran considered himself guilty. He put pressure on everyone at the family gathering and did not think that anyone could oppose him. Eran asked if Cornea would like anything right now. He was not referring to the request he owed her, but rather just wanted to know what she wanted at that moment. Kona realized that there was no need to use her request now, and therefore she could dispose of Marinelle's fate at her own discretion. Even though the girls suffered for the sake of the plan, the real Kona would have been really offended. So Cornea told Eran her wish. He asked her if this was really what she wanted, and she confidently replied yes. So the guy was obliged to fulfill her request. Despite this, The guy made it clear that if those who insulted the girl continued to build their insidious plans without thinking about anything, he would be forced to deal with them on his own. On the way to Kona's room, her aunt called out to her. As it turned out, she already knew what had happened in the garden, so she decided to ask how the girl was feeling. Kona reported that everything was fine, and it was even expected. According to Marinelle, she is just a commoner with nothing, so it is not surprising that people perceive her that way. Anaila's aunt said that Corny would have many more disappointments. However, it is said that the head of the family took care of her and punished all her offenders. So with such protection, the girl does not have to worry about anything. The woman told Coney not to worry because she might be carrying a child of the Wellsit family under her heart. The girl thanked him for his concern. Anaila mentioned that she had something for Cornea. It was a bath foam from the Largo workshop. She advised to use it while taking a bath because the girl was obviously tired today, both mentally and physically. After hugging her, the woman reminded her that in a few days it would be time to take a pregnancy test, and she was sure that the result would be positive, so she wished Kona strength and patience. In her room, Cornea continued to study magic and improve her knowledge. Even though she had received the real Kona's memories of magic, she was still worried about whether she would have the strength to do more than create a magic circle. Soon she will receive a book of magic recipes from Kona's house. Perhaps this will interest her more than learning magic symbols. She was very tired. Cornea remembered the gift from Anaila and decided it was time to take a bath. The foam had a wonderful lemon scent that was refreshing and helped me feel better. The heroine asked the maids how long she had been taking a bath, and they told her that only 20 minutes had passed, but she felt dizzy and decided to finish. Cornea grabbed her stomach, which caused one of the maids to ask how she was feeling. The girl said she had a stomach ache. They offered to call a doctor, but she refused and assured them that she just needed to sleep. After a while, the maid came back into the room. She didn't see Cornea in bed, and it worried her a lot. A girl's faint voice was heard from the restroom, and she was sitting on the floor, clutching her head in pain. A little later, when the girl was already in bed, a worried Eran came into the room. He was told that the girl was bleeding. However, Kona was sure it was a normal menstruation. Eran assured me that I should call a doctor and he would decide for me whether it was a normal period. Kona stopped him, saying that it didn't matter if it was a normal period or not, because the truth was that she was not pregnant and it was obvious. Eran realized what Kona was getting at, so he said that he would never let her go, that he simply could not do it. The guy changed his face and abruptly got up to leave, saying in the end that Kona should follow the doctor's instructions. He also said that he would most likely not be able to visit her in the coming days because of work. Coney thought this behavior was strange, and she was sure that Eran wanted to send her away. The girl asked not to call a doctor and that she would not ask to be released. She even said that she was pretending to be sick. In the original story, a week before the results were announced, the bad girl mixed abortifacient into the bath foam, and Kona started bleeding. Luckily, Kona was not pregnant at the time, so it didn't happen that she lost her baby. As it turned out, sometime before the main events of today, the protagonist, knowing about this reason, decided to imitate the symptoms of the disease on her own. Cornea, who could not use magic properly, developed a few small spells. She asked Manchester, the maid, to bring her some medicine to complete her preparations. 1 drop of blood was enough for the work. Kona's spell and the high-quality ingredients prepared by Manchester were enough to mimic the symptoms of the disease. Although Eran insisted that the girl be examined by a doctor, the doctor simply prescribed medication and left, saying that she needed to be followed up. It was fortunate that it was a male doctor who could not conduct a more detailed examination. So far, everything has gone according to plan. Later, at a pregnancy meeting, Eran will tell Kona's haters that she is letting her go because of a miscarriage. However, the relationship will continue, and the possibility of pregnancy will remain. I had to tell it like that. However, Cornea's already chilly relationship with Velsit's family will become even worse. So she is sure that she will have to stand up for herself without Eran's help wherever possible. Kona is sure that someday she will have a child, but she is not ready yet. She would have liked to stay in the status of newlyweds longer. She didn't want all the inconveniences associated with pregnancy, and she was scared to give birth. However, one of the most important reasons is Rebecca Milax, Ertain's childhood friend to whom he was once engaged. She is the most desirable bride in the country, but in reality she will do anything to get Ertain back. In the original, Kona, who grew up in an orphanage, really wanted a child who would become her family. That's why she decided not to return home and to do everything she could to give her child only the best. Unfortunately, on the 5th month of her pregnancy, she lost her baby. That's why Kona and Ertain parted ways. Even though the heroine could have prevented the events of the original, the problem was that she did not know what other tricks her haters might use later. She needed to review what cards she had in her hand before the meeting started. Cornea's room was visited. It's time to take a pregnancy test. The girl was surprised that a whole month had passed since her last visit with Ertain. During the test itself, Kona mentally begged the author not to get her pregnant. She even resorted to magic to fake bleeding, so she thought there would be more problems if it turned out she was pregnant. The sorcerer completed the procedure and assured me that there was already a result. Ertain and Kona were both tense and waiting for an answer. Ertain asked the sorcerer to go with him to find out the result. This angered the girl a bit because she was also curious and it was a matter of her pregnancy. After talking, Ertain returned and said that the sorcerer could not feel the energy in her womb. It turned out that Kona really knew this would happen, so she breathed a sigh of relief. However, unlike the heroine, it seemed that Ertain was very upset. He told Kona that she should stay in bed until she was better and left. The girl asked him not to leave and to talk to her, but the guy said he had things to do. This angered Cornea, who also wanted to stay in Welsida Castle herself. The girl is going crazy because she hasn't been able to understand Ertain's facial expressions lately. It seemed to her that all this was still a misunderstanding. In a fit of anger, the girl assured him that every time Ertain pissed her off, she would pretend to want to leave. Cornea went to rest. As she fell asleep, she saw a green elf greeting her and being happy to see her again. She was not happy that he was lying under the covers with her, and not, as she thought, Ertain. The girl addressed the creature by name, which pleasantly surprised him, because he had previously thought her rude and uneducated. Finally, he asked her if she was ready for today's leadership. Kona was angry and rubbed her hands together. Mint Chocolate asked her what was wrong with her, and she told him to start explaining. First of all, he decided to talk about the benefits. A frame appeared in front of the girl's face with the words "Mission Calculation Table" written on it. The green elf assured me that to get certain benefits, I had to pay a price. That is complete missions. Mint Chocolate explained that missions can be divided into regular missions, in which credits are given after the goal is achieved, and special missions, in which additional credits are given even after the goal is achieved. At the moment, according to the elf, Cornea has 85 points that she can exchange. The list also included a gift for an assistant item that was worth 1 point. The girl thought it was useless, which hurt her ears. The elf decided to start with the 3rd point, randomly changing the difficulty of the task. This was what she had rejected the last time, that is, Cornea's memories of the relationship. The task was to visit Kona's house and take the necessary things. In general, she was going to visit Kona's house anyway, but she wasn't sure if the memories of the relationship made sense. The heroine already had a general idea of them from reading novels. The girl approached Mint Chocolate, saying that she wanted to exchange her points for special privileges. He assured her that it was a good choice and that she should now take the ball out of the box, which she did well. Kona pulled out a special bonus ticket that will allow her to receive bonuses whenever she wants. With the newly chosen privilege, a girl can enter the world of dreams, even if it is not a day of privilege. The elf told the girl that her special bonus ticket would now be engraved on her wrist. She would just have to touch that spot and think about what she wanted to do with the bonus. Others won't be able to see the tag. As a result, Kona never received the bonuses that would have helped her immediately. Even so, there are some advantages. Mint Chocolate took the task that Kona had been doing for inspection, and they said goodbye. Ertain entered the room. The girl was waiting for him with excitement. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. The guy said that an urgent meeting was scheduled for tomorrow. Ertain said with a sense of guilt that he did not know that all this was happening behind his back. Kona suggested that she should also be at the meeting, to which the guy replied in the affirmative, but assured her that she had nothing to worry about because he would take care of everything. But on the other hand, he would actually be happy to stay away from all this. The guy wondered why Cornea wanted to leave so badly, assuming that maybe she was uncomfortable here because it was different from where she had lived before, or she was just tired of the constant insults. Or maybe she doesn't like him. Mentally, the girl was screaming, saying how could she not like him if he could even conquer Kona in the original, but she was grateful to the author and her parents who created him like that. However, what she said out loud was quite different. The girl asked if he would let her go if she answered yes to his question. Ertain's face showed pain and despair. It was Kona's trick. She wanted to show him how it feels to be offended. Eran was sure that the girl hated him, but Kona said she didn't. She just wanted to know if her boyfriend would let her go. The latter said that they would find out the answer to this question tomorrow at a meeting. The day of the meeting came. Eran held out his hand to Coney, and they entered the hall. The girl has 20 years of experience, so it's time to test her acting. It was strange that all those present at the meeting planned their affairs behind Eran's back, and ultimately feared that he would come to this meeting. Relvond Velsita began the meeting. First of all, he told me the reason. He began to talk about how at the last meeting it was announced that Kona might be pregnant with Welsit's heir, and a marriage license was requested for the same reason. The man continued, saying that there was evidence that Cornea was not pregnant, so they decided to postpone the decision until the results of the examination. They needed to conduct another inspection, which is why a place was allocated for this meeting. Eran's voice was heard saying that after the pregnancy test, it would be appropriate to find a new place to gather. The audience, represented by other members of the family, shouted their agreement, saying that in the end, feelings would not overshadow the boy's wisdom. The part that worried Eran the most was the part that said that evidence had been obtained that Kona was not pregnant. He was very interested in how they could have this information. Eran turned out to be more far-sighted than Kona expected. The boy ordered the sorcerer and the maids to keep quiet, and what is happening now means that there was a conspiracy and they managed to get information, or they were sure that the child was dead. One of those present, named Lord Freldy, claimed that they heard the maids talking while doing laundry. Eran said that an investigation would have to be carried out, and according to the Lord, all those responsible would be punished and dismissed. The guy suggested returning to the topic of the meeting and asked what the other council members thought. Someone began to say that since Kona was not pregnant, they would be happy to accept her as a hostess. Eran's father assured him that his Aunt Elgina also supports such statements. In his opinion, she is quite perceptive, so Eran should not be allowed into Cornea's house. Others in the audience raised a ruckus, saying that neither Kona's background nor her achievements were worthy of their lineage. In their opinion, it was necessary to return everything to the way it was and abandon the old plan. Next, another proposal should be put to the vote. Eran stood up, saying he had heard enough. Now he wanted to express his point of view on the situation. He assured us that the fact that Kona was not pregnant was not a problem, as there was nothing to prevent them from addressing this issue today. Everyone was shocked by this statement, especially Cornea, who was directly affected by it. Eran turned to the girl and told her that she needed to have a good dinner tonight, because the next night would be very long. The guy led Kona out of the meeting room and they walked away. When he stopped, Eran said that all this was the answer to her question. He was not going to let her go. The girl believed that it was entirely her fault because she had overlooked the change in Eran's behavior. She knew he was crazy, but she didn't think he was that crazy. Nevertheless, this was her unstoppable path forward. It seemed to Eran that she did not take the words he said at the meeting seriously. So I asked them if it was time for them to really address the issue of the child. Cornea hesitated, so the guy assured her that she knew what was coming next. They kissed in the corridor, and Eran asked if she wanted him to do it again, or if they would go straight to bed. He picked her up and carried her into the room. This pressure scared Cornea a bit, so she asked me to take my time. Eran looked up at her with a hard look, recalling his phrase about the girl eating well, but he had to take it back. There was no time for that. Eran laid the girl on the bed and asked her to relax. because it might be much more pleasant for her than the first time. Kona stopped Ertain, saying that they didn't have to do it for real. It's no secret why they were together in the same room and no one could hear them. That's why they didn't have to do it. Ertain asked him why he should refuse and why he should pretend. If someone finds out that there is no relationship between them, there will be big problems. Instead, he would like to continue the relationship. That's not all. He craved the girl madly. In fact, Kona also wanted Ertain, but the problem was that if she got pregnant now, there was no telling what the bad guys might do. Cornea reminded Ertain that she had one request that he had promised to fulfill. She asked me to pretend that everything had happened between them. The guy agreed, but asked if the girl thought it was stupid that he was leaving now. Ertain proposed a bet. He would try to convince the girl, and she would try to hold out. In the morning, they were both tired. Kona believed that if it weren't for the risk of pregnancy, she and Ertain would have been up all night. By morning, Kona's skin was rubbing against the thin fabric of her clothes, and she was tired of not being able to get rid of it. Ertenyi said that they would not be able to see each other in the near future, as he needed to sort out the situation. Kona understood, because of one event he almost lost the status of the head of the family. He told her all of this so that she wouldn't imagine something unnecessary. She should also not try to run away from him. He didn't know why she was avoiding a relationship with him, but if she was planning to leave this place, she'd better give up now. When he left, he ordered Coney not to leave his room and not to receive guests. He will instruct the staff to do so. Cornea was convinced that the decision to use deception was the best one. She was happy that such a handsome man was even more crazy about her because he was afraid she would run away. Later, while taking a hot bath, Cornea thought that there had been quite a few unexpected twists and turns lately, but she was sure they had handled them well. Now I could organize my thoughts a bit. In the original, about a month after the test, it becomes known that Cornea is pregnant, but her family is not very supportive. Realizing this, Ertain makes a decision. He proposes marriage to the girl, and they secretly sign a marriage contract. She was pregnant and married, so now they could live happily ever after. Everything would have been fine, but Ertain told this secret to Rebecca, whom he considered his close friend, and made a fatal mistake. Unwilling to give in, Rebecca came up with a plan to drive a wedge between the couple. This is exactly what happened in the original story. As the girl tries to avoid intimacy with Ertain in order not to get pregnant, the plot of the original is completely twisted. There are too many variables. While the girl was thinking, the maids collected evidence of her menstruation. As she continued to think about how to minimize these gigantic variables, she came across the book, The Magic Circle Formula. It was exactly what we needed. Kona was talking to the maid. The latter said that she had heard about the meeting and that everything ended well. Mr. Ertain admitted that he and Kona had made a mistake and that they would not violate the council's rules in the future. Kona asked the maid to ask if she could ask Ertain to talk to her, to which the latter replied that she would ask as soon as she saw the gentleman. According to the heroine, everything was going well. Now she has to ask Ertain to let her go home for a while so that she can take the big magic book of spells from the real Kona. The real Kona, who lived in Belidium, where prostitution was rampant, invented several of her spells to sell. The original didn't have details about the spells, but there is a high probability that there is something like contraception. There was one problem. I had to go to the city to pick up the book, but there is a man possessed by a man who thinks that Kona will run away from him at any opportunity. So the question is whether he will let her go. Even though it was a difficult task, Kona had to accomplish it. Regardless of whether she manages to get the book, she has to go and she already has a rough plan of action. The mission must be fulfilled. In the evening, when Kona was sleeping, Ertain came into the room. He apologized for waking the girl and said that he had only stopped by for a minute because they were supposed to meet that evening. And Kona remembered what the maid had told her about it. When the guy was already there, Cornea decided not to delay, but to ask him about going home. She said that it was important for her to go there on her own and take everything she needed so that nothing would fall into the wrong hands. The guy did not want to let the girl go, but she assured him that she would not run away and would do everything he asked if he let her go. Ertain hesitated. Kona continued to persuade the guy, saying that she was ready for marriage or even something more if he agreed. Eran said he would keep his word and agree. The girl said once again that she would not run away from him. The guy replied that in a different situation, he would have been happy, but now it would be better if it didn't happen. Otherwise, he may have to put shackles on her. Eran mentioned that he was not very polite last night and said that he would talk to Minchester and then they would go over the details. He left, and Kona thanked him once again for listening to her request. The next day, she was already sitting in a carriage on the way to Belidial. The purpose of this trip is to pick up Kona's spellbook, find a magical artifact to resolve the situation, and complete the task. Even though Kona said she would return as soon as she got everything she needed, she wanted to have fun. She stayed in her room for a month. It's one thing to be obsessed with it and take care of it, but it doesn't make it any more fun. Eran himself gave the girl a large sum of money. It was a gift to which he attached a tracking artifact and ordered me to wear it. Kona believed that he gave his consent so that she could have fun. Kona asked Lord Miller, who was accompanying her, to look around a bit on the way back, if he didn't mind. He didn't mind, but assured me that Mr. Eran had told him to come back by the evening. They arrived at their destination, and Kona showed them where her house was, while thinking about how old it was and how she could have lived there. Lord Miller offered to go inside, but Kona assured him that she only needed to pick up a few books and could manage on her own, so he shouldn't worry. In addition, she was wearing a magical artifact. Once inside, the girl was surprised by the open door and a pile of shoe marks on the floor. There was no such thing in the original story. Cornea found the book. However, she was surprised that in the original, the real Kona tied the edge of the book with her hair and used magic to bind it. But now there was no hair. It could mean that the book was being opened. While the girl was thinking, she heard footsteps behind her and an unknown person grabbed her. He told her to be quiet, otherwise he would break her neck. It turned out to be the same man who once broke into Kona's house, Jeffrey. The man accused the girl that he was starving because of Eran, that his bones had not fused properly, and that he was now suffering from pain every day. He kept thinking how he could punish the girl for ruining his life. Luckily for him, he was not the only one thinking about it. Many people wanted to take revenge on her. Jeffrey said he knew how much fun she was having with Eran, offering to touch up Coney's beauty as he had been asked to, so that she wouldn't even be recognized or to have fun with her. Imagining Eran's face when he found out. The crazy man pinned Cornea to the floor so tightly that she could not move. The girl decided to focus on her magical powers to get rid of the bastard. An unknown force threw the man off the girl. It was not Kona. An unknown person asked if she was okay. This situation with Jeffrey and the rescue really shocked the girl. An unidentified man said that the girl had a cut on her face, but it was not deep, so it should heal soon. The girl was very interested in where her savior came from. Jeffrey stood up from his seat, his eyes at first showing furious rage, but the next moment his expression changed. He seemed to recognize Kona's savior. Jeffrey fell to the floor, asking what this man was doing here. He was frightened, begging for forgiveness and to save his life. The unidentified man said that he talked too much and cast a spell of mute on him, which Kona recognized. This man turned out to be a sorcerer. The girl thanked the savior and asked him with surprise about the spell that he had used to subdue the evil one. The man jokingly asked if the girl was worried about the offender. Kona replied that, on the contrary, she would like to take revenge on the bad guy, and to do so, she needed him to be still. The sorcerer assured me that it was not that difficult to do. The girl showed what she could do. Her rescuer was amazed. She was more bloodthirsty than he expected. Kona assured us that she would like to do more, but she is still grateful that she is alive thanks to the sorcerer. Cornea asked her savior's name. The man thought about it and replied that she could just call him Jay. They started knocking on the door. It was Lord Miller, who was worried about the girl. Kona reported that she was fine and that the magic lock on the door had worked. After making sure the girl had a companion to take care of her, Jay said he had to go. In the end, Kona wanted to thank the man somehow, but he said there was no need and he was happy to help her. Finally, Jay told Kona to be careful on her way back. Calling her Mrs. Mage, he teleported away. An excited Lord Miller burst into the house. He apologized to the girl because he was supposed to accompany and protect her. The man saw that Kona was injured, but she assured him that everything was fine. The Lord suggested that we return as soon as possible. Cornelia couldn't help but think that the man who called himself Jay was too suspicious. It seemed strange to her that he had appeared at the exact moment she needed him. Kona also wondered how he knew she was a magician.